Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today, well, today is Hump Day.
Uh-oh. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
That's right, folks. Today is Hump Day. This is the day in which we attempt to begin the weekend, sometimes with success, sometimes not. But as I like to say, the fun is all in the trying. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and this evening. Got some interesting news and topics to talk to you about. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to kick right off into it. But we're going to start off the way that we usually do, and that is with a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start off here with the folks over at Hitman Industries. Hitman Industries makes rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length. If you've purchased an AR in the last few years, there's a good chance you already have one of their barrels, so why not get another one? Whether you're looking to rebarrel your old rifle or, I don't know, maybe do a brand new build, whatever you decide to do, start your experience with Hitman Industries. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. You need to find out why. How can you do that? All you have to do is visit cragop.org. That's cragop.org, because if you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. Just go to hogholsters.com, HAWG holsters.com. That stands for Helping Americans Wear Guns. And they like it so much, they're going to give you a discount. All you have to do is use the discount code The Rundown. All caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there. And you're going to get yours on discount today. And then finally, if you're looking for new gear, whether you're looking for boots, whether you're looking for hats, maybe you're looking for backpacks, maybe you're looking for some cool tactical pants, whatever you're looking for, you will find all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. They have a huge selection. They have competitive pricing, especially group pricing. They specialize in group sales and the best customer service available out there. Please take a moment and visit their website at uscombatgear.com. Also, want to encourage you, if you have not already done so, to please sign up for the 2A newsletter. This is put out by 2A News. This has a daily aggregation of all the key and important 2A news stories that are going to be available out there. You're going to want to visit. They've got the vlogs. They've got the blogs. They've got the news stories. They've even got the mainstream media news stories on the Second Amendment and firearms. All you have to do is go to 2anews.us, hit that subscribe button up there, put in your email address, and you will receive a 2A News newsletter, the 2A newsletter in your email box. And the best part about it all, folks, it is for free. How about that? It is 100% free. All you got to do is sign up today. And finally, now, if you are watching this show on the West Coast in the 3 o'clock hour, or if you're watching it on the East Coast during the 6 o'clock hour, then you're watching us live, which means we're taking your comments. We would love to hear from you. Do us a favor. Go ahead and drop us a comment. Let us know what you think about the program. Let us know where you're watching us from. Anything. And in fact, we actually encourage you. Whether you agree with us or disagree with us, we encourage you to disagree with us, because when you disagree with us, well, then we get to mock you.
Oh wow, was that a mockingbird?
Man, is it a mockingbird? Is that a mockingbird?
That's right. As Mike would say, we will mock you. But anyway, we're going to have a good old time today here. Let's go ahead and get into it. Antifa protesters. Let's just say you might recall that there was an attack on a facility in Texas back around the 4th of July, I believe last year. Anyway, it turns out, a number of the folks that were arrested have now been sentenced to jail time. This, according to the folks over at Breitbart. And let's go ahead and see if I can get the story up here real quick. All right, it says here, video says Antifa protesters slammed with 450 years. Wow. 450 years of prison time for July 4th attack on Texas facility. That right there, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time to be spending in jail. But we'll go ahead and we'll watch the video of what it is that they did here first, and then we'll come back and we will read the story.
From the moment the first police officer arrives,
Hey, stop!
it only takes seconds
He's running! Get on the ground!
before he's shot in the neck. He survived and recovered from what federal authorities call a terror attack outside a North Texas ICE detention center on the 4th of July.
Do not move! You will be shot!
You're seeing the shooting and its aftermath for the first time on video obtained by WFAA.
Don't move! Put your hands!
The feds charged more than a dozen people, calling them Antifa terrorists, in a first-of-its-kind case that led to a manhunt, then guilty pleas and convictions this spring. But that night,
At least how many's with you? Now, answers!
Don't know.
video shows officers struggled to find everyone involved.
I do not consent to search. I don't consent to a search as well.
You ain't got to consent to a damn thing today.
Dash cam audio shows others were more cooperative.
I'm just a peaceful protester.
State charges are still pending, and 9 of the suspects are appealing their federal convictions. Reporting in DFW, I'm Cole Sullivan.
All right, so let's read a little bit of story here. It says, in a national first, U.S. Department of Justice has brought the hammer down on the officially designated terrorist organization Antifa, or Antifa, however you want to pronounce it. This week, doling out 450 years of prison time to members of the group in Texas for their attack on a federal immigration facility a year ago. One of those convicted was sentenced was the alleged leader of the North Texas cell, Benjamin Hanil Song, a former Marine reservist who a federal court judge slammed with a whopping 100 years in prison for the attempted murder of an Alvarado police officer at suburban Fort Worth's Prairieland Detention Center on July 4th, 2025. It says 5 of the 7 other Antifa members received sentences of 50 years each, with one remaining member getting 70 years and the other 30 years for their parts in the protest, which featured explosives, vandalism, and rioting. 5 of the defendants were women. Quote, "This is the first sentencing of defendants affiliated with Antifa following President Donald J. Trump's executive order designating the group as domestic terrorist organization in September 25, the DOJ said in a statement." Now, I want you to keep in mind, this is a group that many Democrats have said doesn't exist. Antifa is just an idea. It's a loose group of people. Well, here's the deal. If you decide that you want to loosely coordinate and loosely identify yourself as Antifa, then you are part of a terrorist organization. And when you consider the fact that this is a group that, once again, involved the attempted murder of a law enforcement officer, this is a group that had explosives, that did vandalism, that rioted, and once again, during those riots, attacked officers or attacked law enforcement officers, then you get what you get. And because you're a part of, I don't know if I'll put it this way, rioting in and of itself probably wouldn't have gotten this much time, but I'll tell you what, attempting to kill an officer, yeah, that'll get you some time, especially when it's as a part of an organized attack. And that's exactly what this was. You know, the left is very, very good at trying to use or attempting to use like a military style or military type terminology. And the reason why they do that is because what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it sound like they're engaged in a war, they're engaged in a fight, right? But they're not, right? Or in this particular case now, they actually are. They said normally they're not. Normally they use that sort of rhetoric. The politicians use that sort of rhetoric to get their folks all hyped up and make it feel like they're doing something. The thing that they fail to understand is is that there are some people that are going to take that war terminology, that battlefield terminology, they're going to take it seriously. And they're going to go out and attack people. They're going to go out and attack entities. They're going to go out and attack government officials. And that's what these folks did. And you got the Democrats who are going to say, well, that's not what we intended, but that's what you inspired. That is exactly what you've inspired in these folks. That's what you asked for. That's go back and look at your rhetoric. Look at the things that you say when you say someone will reap the whirlwind, and then you're surprised, right? You're surprised that somebody shows up at a Supreme Court justice's house in an attempt to kill them. Anyway, I'm glad to see this happen. By the way, folks, this is not going to be the last, because there are tons of people who have attacked, once again, attacked ICE agents over the last year, many of whom have been arrested. I will not be surprised if you start to see more and more of them get charged the same way that these guys did, and they wind up having to pay the price, a significant price as well. My hat's off to the folks who prosecuted them. All right, moving right along. Oh, New York, I think New York and California are just battling to see who is going to be the first to complete and utter destruction. I don't know which major city or state is going to wind up being go first, but California, see, first of all, one of the things I'm saying is California is, even the liberal Democrats, even the establishment Democrats are leftist Marxists. But for the most part, they're not democratic socialists. But that's exactly what you're seeing happen right now in New York, as democratic socialists, as Marxists, who are supported by Mayor Mamdani, are actually starting to take over the government there in New York. This being reported by the folks over at the Washington Free Beacon. Chill of collectivism spreads. Mamdani-backed candidates sweep in contested New York City House primaries. The socialist mayor unseated 2 Democratic incumbents and took a third vacant seat in 3 key Democratic primaries. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani stunned the Democratic political establishment with a clean sweep Tuesday evening after all 3 of the far left insurgent candidates he endorsed in the city's congressional primaries defeated opponents, including 2 incumbents championed by party leaders. Within minutes of the polls closing, Mamdani acolyte Brad Lander was declared the winner in his challenge to Representative Dan Goldman in the city's 10th district. In Brooklyn, Assemblywoman Claire Valdez, like Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, triumphed over Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso to claim the seat being vacated by retiring Representative, is it Nadia Velasquez. And in a stunning upset in northern Manhattan, Daraliza Aliva Chevalier, a Democratic socialist with unusually controversial leftist views, even for New York City, defeated Representative Adriano Espaillat, a longtime established warhorse. The 3 primary elections were being closely watched nationwide as a test of the young mayor's strength, but many seasoned New York political hands were shocked by the clean sweep. Mamdani had bucked the Democratic establishment-backed candidates who, in the case of Valdez and Chevalier, had views well to the left of Upper Manhattan and outer borough voters, and made his opposition to Israel a key litmus test. Goldman and Esplat were both largely supportive of Israel. As the campaign crescendoed, Mamdani doubled down on his anti-Israel rhetoric, saying, "Now is the time of monsters," a quote by a Marxist philosopher to describe the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. On Tuesday, he demurred when asked to condemn an Uzbek coffee shop owner who smeared Goldman as a fascist who sipped genocide juice after Goldman, who is Jewish, visited the coffee shop with his young daughter. Now, keep in mind, folks. Here's the deal. These folks are getting away with being blatantly and openly anti-Semitic, right? They are blatantly anti-Semitic. I mean, we're talking, they're not even covering it up. They're not even pretending anymore. This is the Democratic Party. And by the way, this is despite the fact that overwhelmingly Jews vote Democrat. Overwhelmingly Jews tend to support Democrats. But I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if they're going to start to rethink that. You would think. I mean, who would want to be a part of a party that wants to see you swept from the face of the earth? And by the way, just to be real clear, this is not all Democrats. We're not talking all Democrats. We're talking a lot of Democrats. In fact, we're talking most Democrats. But overwhelmingly, they're being taken over by the Democratic Socialists of America. Another political party is taking over the Democratic Party. And Democrats are evidently in no position to do anything about it. They apparently have lost the momentum in their own party. They apparently have lost the reins within their own party. And places like New York, now, here's the thing. They're going to start to be the litmus test. I mean, the test. They're going to be the petri dish for socialism in the United States of America. And the question is going to become, as they start to implement these policies that Mamdani wants to implement, how long before the city collapses? How long before the economy collapses? He's already bragging. So you got the mayor already bragging, well, with the wave of my hand, I erased an entire deficit. No, you didn't erase a deficit. You pushed it off into the future. You said, yeah, we're going to get money from the state. So the state bailed you out. And then the rest of it, we're going to push into the future. And so we're going to push it off till next year or the year after that or the year after that. We're just, not going to pay people until. We're not going to cover paying stuff until. And that's how we balance the budget. In other words, I'm just going to ignore the fact that I owe people money. I'm going to ignore, I'm going to say I'm going to do things, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to, at least I'll put it this way. We're going to do these things. We're just not going to pay for it. How about that? Anyway, these are the folks that are probably going to take property away from private property owners in order to open up publicly owned grocery stores, right? They're going to fix the prices. And I don't know how exactly they're going to do that, because you're going to have to pay employees. You're going to have to pay some rents. Well, I guess if the city takes over the property, I guess they won't have to pay any rents, but you're going to have to pay employees. Someone's got to work at these stores. You're going to have to buy products, right? No one's just going to give you products. So you have to find a way to buy products for those stores. And then, oh, by the way, you're going to have to convince people that are going to want to buy those products. What if nobody wants to buy those products? How is that going to work? Every once in a while, though, I guess you gotta give socialism a chance. You gotta let them experiment a little, let them give it a try a little bit, because you need to show that it just doesn't work. Right? There's got to be evidence. You've got to provide evidence that it just doesn't work. And by the way, folks, it's not going to work. When they start outlawing the police and they stop sending cops into certain communities, where let me see. You're saying, well, they're going to stop over policing the black community. No, what they're going to stop doing is they're going to stop providing protection in black communities. In communities where there are crime, they are no longer going to send cops, which means if you are in the crime business in some of these areas, it means business is about to get really, really good for you, hands down. And when people are robbing you, when women are getting raped, when people are being assaulted and robbed, you're going to beg. You're going to beg for somebody to come in and be about law and order. I doubt that will happen. I sincerely doubt that will happen. But you're going to ask for it. You're going to want it. And it ain't going to happen. Anyway. Speaking of law enforcement, my favorite law enforcement official in the entire country, Harmeet Dillon, the assistant Attorney General there in Washington, D.C. Well, she is looking to protect her fellow Californians, because, yes, she is from California, from the Glock ban. Dillon says DOJ will sue over California's ban on Glocks. The head of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division has put California Governor Gavin Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta on notice. If the state tries to enforce its upcoming ban on Glocks and other striker-fired pistols with cruciform trigger bars, it will be the next jurisdiction that faces federal litigation. Matter of fact, there's her tweet right there. TikTok on January 1, California plans to impose an unconstitutional Glock ban. Today, I notified California Governor and AG Rob Bonta to drop the unconstitutional restrictions on law-abiding citizens' rights to purchase legal firearms before the ban goes into effect, or we will sue. Stay tuned. And that's a copy of the letter right there. It says here, California isn't the only state where anti-gun Democrats are taking aim at some of the most popular pistols around, but it is the first state that will enforce a ban on the sale of Glocks and other firearms with similar designs, which can be illegally modified into full auto machine guns through the installation of a small switch that is already illegal to possess under both California and federal law. Dillon's letter says she's not only authorized a legal challenge to the Glock ban, but to California's handgun roster, which requires gun makers to submit their firearms to the California Department of Justice for approval for the state. It says here, a federal judge granted an injunction and a separate legal challenge to the handgun roster, but that decision was stayed by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And for now, the roster remains in effect and thwarts the ability of Californians to easily acquire firearms that are widely available in the country. So for those of you who do not know about the not unsafe handgun roster, that's right, it is referred to as the not unsafe handgun roster because the state of California can never declare a firearm to be safe. So the not unsafe handgun roster was originally created as supposed as consumer protection. There were a lot of these, as they referred to them, the Saturday night specials, the really, really cheap guns that were out there that, supposedly were really, really low quality. And it was kind of a consumer protection thing. They wanted to make sure that the firearms were safe, right? So what you had to do is you had to pay a $200 fee and submit a copy of the gun. And the gun was then tested to make sure that it didn't fail. The primary test that it was engaged in was a drop test to make sure if you dropped it, that the firearm dropped, it wouldn't just go off, right? Immediately after that, 90 to 95% of firearms that were submitted passed the drop test and were deemed safe, but they were added to the not unsafe handgun roster. Then they added a couple of features because they wanted to make it so that, to try and quote unquote promote gun safety. One of them was a magazine release. So basically, if you release the magazine and there was a round in the chamber, you couldn't shoot the round in the chamber. And that was so that, if someone ejected the magazine and they didn't know that there was still a round in there, at least they wouldn't be able to shoot the gun, right? The other was the loaded chamber indicator, which is a little lever that pops out, a little thing that pops out a little bit to let you know if there is a round in the chamber. Once again, supposedly with the idea of making sure that you don't accidentally fire the gun thinking it's not loaded. Anyway, when that became law, well, then most firearms didn't have those two features. So all of a sudden, a bunch of handguns that were being manufactured could no longer be sold by FFLs or by gun stores in the state of California. If they didn't have these things. Some firearms had them, some don't. But then they added this thing called microstamping, and they didn't just add microstamping. Microstamping is where they basically mark each shell casing, right, with the serial number of the gun. Traditionally, or mostly the way it's done is it's done with the firing pin, and the firing pin, the firing pin basically hits the shell and puts a stamp on there. And when the shell is ejected, well, then you've got it there. Well, in California, they actually required it to be in 2 places, which, by the way, was technologically impossible. No, by the way, when they passed this law, microstamping was an idea. It wasn't even really a thing that had been done, that could be done. Once they finally got to the point where they could do it, then Attorney General in California, Kamala Harris, decided she was going to say, yeah, okay, the technology exists. Except the technology never existed for it to happen in 2 places. And it still doesn't. So what happens is now, anytime there's a new model gun, it has to, by the way, a new model gun has to be has to be added to the tested and added to the roster, and has to meet all those things. So if you come out with a new model gun, which means if you change the springs, if you change the color, if you do anything, if you change any of your suppliers, it's a new gun that now has to be subjected to the roster, as opposed to older guns, which are already grandfathered in because they were already put on the roster. Then they started taking guns off the roster, which meant that we started to see fewer and fewer handguns that were available for us to purchase here in the state of California. Anyway, all that having been said, now they've made it so that Glocks can no longer be purchased. Anyway, so once the roster's gotten rid of, and I'm glad to see that they're going to be moving ahead and getting rid of the roster, at least challenging it at the federal level. They need to be able to do that, because most of these firearms that are that are not on the roster, once again, are safe, are safe and in common use throughout the nation, if not the world. And Glocks in particular, it's the most common model handgun in the entire country. And now they're saying, oh, by the way, you can. And by the way, here's the funny part. So the new Glocks, they've already fixed the problem so that you can't put in this little switch. There's only one problem. The new Glock isn't on the roster, so it can't be sold in California. If they did, then that wouldn't be a problem. They would just sell the new model handgun. They want to sell the new model handgun in California. People in California want to buy the new model handguns. They want to buy the new model Glocks. Not allowed to. Not allowed to. Hey, quick shout out to the folks over at American Crossfire. Thank you so much once again. We appreciate you guys tuning in. You guys are always faithful. Anyway, nice to see that they're standing up to California, because California, like I said, they've actively said we don't do the Constitution here in the state of California, sadly, or at least the California legislature doesn't do the Constitution. They've publicly admitted as much. All right, a lot of people are talking about the nuclear deal, or the Iran deal. Some people like it, some people don't. Well, I don't know many people. I don't know hardly anybody who actually likes it, right? Partially because no one believes that Iran is going to live by any of it. And it seems like, we're already allowing them to sell their oil. And in case you are wondering, yeah, oil prices are starting to come down. Stock for oil companies is going up. And I think we're going to see prices overall are going to, I don't know if prices are going to come down, but you're definitely going to see inflation come down. You're definitely not going to see prices go up, I think, the way that they have been. But in any case, one of the big sticking points was, you had both the president and the vice president said there are going to be inspections. They're going to be meeting. They're going to be going through and talking about, how they're going to secure the nuclear dust. And Iran came out and said, nope, we didn't agree to any of that. There was only one problem, and that's because, people, wait, people are like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean there's not going to be there's going to be inspections? I mean, anyway, there was a big disagreement over whether or not there are going to be inspections. Well, the head of the IAEA, right? These are the folks who are supposed to be doing the inspecting. Well, they had a little something to say about that. Or he had a little something to say about that. And he came out and basically flat out said, yeah, we're going to be inspected. We're going to be on the ground inspecting.
Fundamental thing I would like to remind you and draw your attention to is that there has been a memorandum of understanding signed by both presidents. This has been signed, has been agreed. Paragraph 8 of this memorandum of understanding says explicitly that the nuclear activities that are going to be carried out with regards to the nuclear material facilities and will be supervised by the IAEA in all letters. So we will be working on the modalities, dates, procedures, places very soon, and the inspections will indeed take place. Of course, this will be done in collaboration and in cooperation with the government of Iran, and I have no doubt that we are going to be able to do that.
All right, so you heard it there, folks. Also being reported by the BBC. UN nuclear chief says inspectors will visit Iran sites as part of war deal. The head of the global nuclear watchdog has said it will carry out inspections in Iran under the country's preliminary peace agreement with the U.S. Quote, inspections will indeed take place. International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Grossi told reporters in Japan, quote, we will be working on the modalities, dates, procedures, places very soon. The agreement signed last week said explicitly that the dilution of Iran's highly enriched uranium would be carried out under IAEA supervision. However, Iran's deputy foreign minister said access to its damaged nuclear facilities and nuclear material would only be addressed within the framework of the final deal with the U.S. So Iran, for some reason, is still kind of, well, no, we didn't agree to that, but you did. It's there in the memo that you signed. I think, here's what I think is what's going on. I think this is what a lot of people are talking about. I believe what they're doing is they're trying to save face internally. They know it's there. They know what's going on, and they're trying to save face internally. And I don't know. They're gonna have to figure that stuff out. To be quite honest, they're gonna have that. That's all internal stuff. But in the end, it appears to be that these inspections are going to be taking place. And once again, I'm still not in love with this deal. I'm not. I don't think it's a good deal. I still, in the end, if in the end this means a non-nuclear Iran, and we are actually not just inspecting the nuclear dust, but we have the ability to keep an eye on these facilities, to keep an eye on the work that they're doing. Okay, then maybe. All right, maybe that's a little bit better. All right. But so far, I'm not one of those folks who, because I disagree with them on this particular item, that I'm willing to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I still believe the president has done a phenomenal job. I just think that in this particular case, especially if this deal winds up being worse than the JCPOA, which is the deal that Obama agreed to, but we got to own it. We got to own that it's not as good. But in the end, the people, in particular, the voters overall, have demonstrated, or they kind of had that. They would rather have cheap gas. They would rather have lower prices than to see that we can guarantee 100% that Iran is, ends their desire for, nuclear, to get a nuclear weapon. Anyway. All right, folks, that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Go to hogholsters.com. Use your discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get your hog holster today. All of our parting shots today are going to be brought to you by the Babylon Bee, fake news that you can trust. You'll love this one. Starting off here from the Babylon Bee, Al-Qaeda wins New York primary. I firmly believe that if Al-Qaeda had a party in New York, they would win the New York primary. There is not a doubt in my mind right now that they would, because, that just seems to be what New York is into. Anyway. New Yorkers excited to see how never before tried government called socialism turns out. That's because they're dumb. They don't know that socialism has tried and failed every place that it's ever been instituted. And then finally, in a powerful act of protest, liberals begin adding algae to drinking water. Did you see the videos of them out there cheering on the algae because they hate Donald Trump so much? They so want Donald Trump to fail. They want algae in the reflecting pool. It's just bad. And by the way, I have seen the stories and have seen some of the charges filed against some of these folks who are yes, actually damaging the reflecting pool in order to make Donald Trump look bad. Yes, they're doing it. And it's crazy. Anyway. All right, folks, that brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're going to give one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We got the folks at Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length at hitmanindustries.net. The California Republican Assembly, otherwise known as the conscience of the Republican Party. Please visit them at cragop.org. The best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hawgholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, and that would be at uscombatgear.com. And that will be it for today's program. We will be back tomorrow on Throat Punch Thursday. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and we will see you mañana.